Demon Lord Kratos sat atop his towering, sinister throne, a dense demonic aura enveloping the grand, cold hall around him. His crimson eyes, usually sharp and malevolent, appeared distant, clouded with memories of a life long past. In another world, in what felt like a different age, he had been Kim Jong-cheol, an ordinary graduate student pursuing agricultural studies at Korea University. Fate had twisted his existence overnight, placing him in the body of the Demon King Kratos, the ultimate boss character in his favorite brutal RPG game, Paladin of Blood. It was a cliched tale often heard, but the horror of it was now his reality. He was going to further continue telling the story, but something like that wouldn't even help. But that was not the problem right now. The echo of heavy footsteps filled the chamber as Zephyros, a tall and cold-faced demon commander, entered, halting before the throne. His face bore a disciplined seriousness as he reported the grim news. He told Demon Lord that the preparations for the war have been completed. The demon army, long starved and maddened, stood gathered outside the fortress gates. The forces awaited Kratos' command to descend upon the realms of humans and elves alike, ready to tear them apart for sustenance. The demons had suffered too long, driven to cannibalism and despair by the desolate, infertile land they inhabited. Their tragedy of being born in a barren land, the pain of having to eat our own kind, and to make the history that will last, to rip the humans apart and crush the elves and turn them into their food. Yet, in a sudden and shocking turn, Kratos issued an unprecedented command. The war was to be halted, the attack called off. Instead, he declared that the demons would abandon their plans for slaughter and embark on a new path: agriculture, farming. The hall fell into stunned silence, disbelief freezing the demon generals where they stood. One amongst them immediately protested, deeming the idea absurd, but Kratos, his fierce exterior faltering, hissed threateningly, his own fears gnawing at him internally. He had little choice. His memories of Kim Jong-cheol's life haunted him. In that world, he had been an exemplary agricultural student, outshining others to the point of becoming an overworked tool for his professors. Jong-cheol had once believed that rising to the top would bring prosperity and happiness, but instead it left him exhausted, used, and disillusioned. Professors burdened him with their work under the guise of mentorship while reaping the rewards. Angry and desperate, he became the slave. He was doing all the work, but the credit was all given to the professors. He wanted to kill all those fuckers. His sole source of dopamine was victory over impossible odds, driving him to sacrifice sleep and sanity. He sought solace in gaming, pouring himself into Paladin of Blood, a notoriously difficult RPG that no one had cleared 19 times, except him. Upon finally conquering the game for the 19th time, his overjoyed declaration of dominance was abruptly followed by his soul being whisked away into the very world of the game. He got happy thinking he was the strongest in the world, wondering the 20th playthrough will be of insanely hellish difficulty. He needed to level up first before trying it. He was determined that he will level up as he is the strongest. The max level was 9,999, so he decided to stop leveling it, wondering how many years it took him to level this up. Unfortunately, it wasn't the strongest character he got teleported. He was getting anxious, but he was trying to calm himself. He figured it out that he weighs soul at the moment because his body was blue and that he won't fall and die. Probably he seized the Tower of Life, meaning he had entered the game. Paladin of Blood. He was gravitating towards the tomb of Paladin. He was going to possess his character-aged Kimchi, which was almost at maximum level, hoping his life of being invincible and strong was about to start. But now when he looked at it, he really didn't want to turn into that, but he still was unaware where he was heading towards. Instead, he found himself inside Kratos, an overpowered boss in appearance but ultimately doomed within the game's storyline. Sighing that if he hadn't had that stupid thought after looking at aged Kimchi back there, he would have become the most overpowered character, exclaiming he was so stupid and idiot to do that. While elsewhere demons were hypothetically suggesting that maybe Demon Kratos has become weaker, that's why he got scared and stopped their attack, discussing why don't they join hands and cut his head off and share the authority of the throne. However, Kratos became the king by taking the head of the previous demon lord though, and so if he hadn't gotten weaker, 2 out of the 4 of them will either suffer fatal injuries or die, but she assured Asherat that if he offered to be their shield, they can give it a try. Still wondering if they get to have solid evidence if the demon lord has gotten weaker. What will they do then? But if so is the case, they will have to kill him. As Zephyros continued his grim updates about the demonic army's deteriorating morale and infighting, and how there have been more cases of people attacking and devouring each other internally, and some also left the land of demons without notice, Kratos felt the noose tighten around his neck. Zephyros informs him that his generals were watching for any sign of weakness to betray him, knowing that if the four of them attacked him together, he will definitely die if he appears weak. He was curious about the aged Kimchi, since he didn't possess it, so it's just a corpse or not. And perhaps then just charging into the human world would be better. Zephyros reveals the video of the tomb of the paladin that was sent by General Ogmia, the mere sight of a video projection showing aged Kimchi's gruesome slaughter of one of Kratos' generals turned Kratos pale. Aged Kimchi's eerie, vacant stare and savage attacks sent a cold dread through him. Escaping into the human world was futile, as aged Kimchi would follow and eviscerate him. Staying would mean eventual assassination by his own subordinates. At this rate, he would appear either weak or choose to surrender, and the four great demon generals will kill him, and if he charges into the human world, aged Kimchi will gouge his eyes out and kill him. He was internally crying over the fact that why did he came into this world? Why can't he find happiness the only way? His only chance for survival lay in stabilizing the demon realm's internal chaos. He resolved to turn the desolate wasteland into arable land, an idea rooted in his prior life's knowledge of agriculture. Zephyros asked him where he's going. He informed him that he was going to look at some lands for farming. Zephyros chose to be straightforward with him. He exclaimed that he is narcissistic, arrogant, and have zero manners. For him to say pardon and that's gross and horrifying, pleading him to not do that. Kratos wondered if he was trying to provoke him, or was he always playing such a character? Zephyros had just once appeared before the battle with the Demon King without an explanation, but that actually made him quite a popular character, which was why players thought he was just either very loyal to the Demon Lord or really respected him. Yet Zephyros reminds him that Kratos' blunder this time was unprecedented and that he have never met a lord who lost that much trust from the demons. Kratos was finding him annoying. He reminded him that the land of death was a barren, cursed expanse where no crop had survived due to violent temperature extremes and infertile soil. He reminds him that both the former Demon Lord and he have already tried farming in that land. With the harsh and extreme temperature differences, he should be well aware that nothing grows on that land. Kratos accepts that the land is called Land of Death. But with his current abilities, it's possible to save the land. He really hated farming, but he needed to do it at the moment. He picks up the sand and gulps it down, leaving Zephyros shocked and curious. Making Zephyros wonder that the Demon Lord is strange he has become a beggar who eats dirt. Kratos asks, what was he writing? He informs him that he was just performing his duties. Recording the Demon Lord's chronicles is important. After all, the Demon Lord's ability to remember things has definitely deteriorated. But Kratos, recalling the fundamental principles of nitrogen fixation, clung to hope. He understood that in any case, the ground here definitely has zero nutrients, no nitrogen either, an element that is absolutely necessary for the growth of plants. Plants are unable to make use of the nitrogen in the air by themselves, even though it makes up 78% of the atmosphere, because the atoms form solid triple bonds, making it nearly impossible for them to undergo chemical reactions. Thus, humanity developed the nitrogen fixation process through chemical engineering, leading to a huge increase in the food production, and to do that here is impossible. There's nothing to be used as the foundation for the farming. That means they need to make use of the nitrogen fixation mechanism in nature. Lightning, using its high-voltage nitrogen, is oxidized to nitrate. It then mixes with the rainwater and gets absorbed into the soil. And the main technique of Demon Lord Kratos is Bloody Strike. It explodes both lightning and moisture at the same time. It's a technique made for creating fertile soil. Readying himself for the painful spell, Kratos ordered Zephyros and the others to step back. As he invoked the magic, agony shot through his body. The excruciating technique left him howling internally, though he fought to maintain his composure. His generals, hidden behind skeletal trees, spied on him with bloodlust, eagerly waiting for a sign of weakness. Zephyros, sensing Kratos' pain and trembling resolve, openly declared that the Demon Lord had weakened, a thinly veiled provocation. Recognizing the danger, Kratos steeled himself. He had to act before the generals moved against him. Channeling every ounce of power, he forced the blood strike again, enduring the unbearable torment to unleash the critical combination of lightning and rain. Despite his suffering, he knew it was preferable to death by his treacherous subordinates. Elsewhere, Aged Kimchi stood amidst the chaos, staring blankly into the distance. Faint memories of his countless lives flickered within him, leaving him adrift without purpose. He had lived this life more than 10 times now. The summon of duty, the divine compulsion that had once driven him forward, had fallen silent. In the absence of a guiding voice, he was left grappling with existential emptiness, unsure of what to seek, whom to fight, or how to continue. In the heart of the demon realm, Kratos stood amidst his demon generals, their eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger. The air was thick with tension, the kind that precedes a storm. Asurat, one of the most formidable among them, stepped forward, a sinister grin playing on his lips. "You know the rule of the demons, right? The strongest is the demon lord." Kratos' body trembled uncontrollably, his mind racing with fear. The sheer presence of his generals was overwhelming, each exuding an aura of immense power. He felt paralyzed, unable to summon any skills, his thoughts spiraling into despair. "Ugh, they're so scary! Each of them is so freaking strong. I can't even use a skill now. Am I going to die?" Asurat's grin widened, mistaking Kratos' trembling for a buildup of power. "Ugh, what incredible pressure! The fight hasn't even started, but he's already gathering his strength to the point his body is trembling." His eyes sparkled with anticipation, eager to test his might against Kratos. Meanwhile, the other demon generals lurked behind a massive tree, their eyes fixed on the impending battle. They whispered among themselves, contemplating whether to intervene. Asurat, sensing their hesitation, felt a chill run down his spine. He realized he might have to face Kratos alone, a daunting prospect even for him. Zephyros, the announcer, stepped forward, his voice echoing across the battlefield. "Based on the longtime tradition of the demons, all fights are to the death, and there's no giving up." His words solidified the gravity of the situation, leaving no room for retreat. Asurat tried to steel himself, convincing his mind that he could win. "Don't get scared. I'll win this. He's weakened." He charged at Kratos with a massive sword, its blade gleaming ominously. Kratos, caught in a whirlwind of fear, recalled movements from a game he once played. "I've seen that movement in the game. It's either a thrust or a slash. There's no way I can dodge something like that." Yet as Asurat's blade descended, Kratos' body moved instinctively, dodging the attack with surprising agility. "Huh? How did I dodge it?" The battle intensified, with Kratos evading each of Asurat's attacks. Asurat's frustration grew, unable to land a single blow. The other generals watched in disbelief, their confidence in Asurat waning. Kratos began to understand the mechanics of this world. "Simply put, there's no way his attacks will hit me." He smirked, mocking Asurat, his confidence surging. The demon public, watching the battle unfold, erupted in cheers, chanting Kratos' name. The generals, however, were paralyzed with fear, unable to comprehend the turn of events. Suddenly, a message appeared before Kratos. "Kim Jang-chol, you realize the basic rule of this world." He was taken aback, recognizing the messenger from webtoons he used to read. Another message followed. "You have also succeeded at dodging your enemy's attacks with high concentration. As a reward, a new system was unlocked. Targeting function unlocked." With this newfound ability, Kratos locked onto Asurat, preparing to unleash a special skill. "This is the targeting that's used when using special skills. That means," he shouted, "Bloody Strike!" The attack hit Asurat directly, causing a massive explosion. As the smoke cleared, Asurat was seen sitting on the ground, his clothes burnt, his body steaming. Despite the devastating blow, he was still alive. Kratos was shocked. He's still alive after being hit by Bloody Strike, which causes instant death in the game? Shit. He's got great recovery, so he'll recover his energy in no time. Determined to prevent Asurat's recovery, Kratos continued his assault, striking repeatedly. The demon generals watched in horror, realizing Kratos was inflicting pain without delivering a killing blow. A message popped up. "You have torn off all of Asurat's clothes, and he is now naked." Kratos, embarrassed, thought, "What is this random message? Can you not talk as if I'm some kind of pervert?" Another message appeared. "A new system has been unlocked. Inventory's armor removal unlocked." He checked his inventory but found nothing new. "Is there some kind of good armor there? What the hell? There's only what I'm already wearing. I don't see anything that can be used right now." Realizing he couldn't kill Asurat outright, Kratos devised a plan. Oh, wait a minute. Since he's not dead, I can still target him. I can also keep firing bloody strikes. I can infuse the ground with tons of nitrogen. His face twisted into an evil grin. Yes, I'm the smartest. He turned to his generals, their bodies trembling with fear. Oi, Sergei, Sergei responded, terrified. Yes? Kratos commanded, tie Azerat up tightly. Sergei thought, he wants me to tie a naked man tightly? He's trying to humiliate both me and Azerat at the same time. Azerat was tied to a rod, unconscious, his body burnt and covered in mud. Upon regaining consciousness, he laughed maniacally. The undying Azerat has completely recovered. You've indeed gotten weaker. To think you can't kill me with bloody strike. This time, I'll definitely cut off your head. To his surprise, Kratos hit him with another bloody strike. Asurat groaned in pain. Gah! Kratos thought, with this, I can oxidize the nitrogen in the air into nitrite. He commanded Hartok, Hartok, I want you to cover this whole area with fog. It has to be so thick that water will be flowing. Hartok thought, what? Does he intend to make this whole place wet so he can make his lightning more painful? What a creative way of torture. I've learned something new today. The fog enveloped Azerat's body, and Kratos continued his relentless assault. Azerat screamed in agony, his voice echoing through the mist. Zephyros watched with a calm, serious expression, while the other demon generals were paralyzed with fear. Kratos, examining the sand on his hands, thought, awesome! With this, I can make the land here good ground with nitrogen. What if I get a bountiful harvest? I'm getting so excited. Ha ha ha! He realized the soil needed improvement. This loose, monovalent structured soil neither allows oxygen to enter nor drains water well. For farming, crumbly, granular structured soil is ideal, which is why the thing I have to create now is manure. He turned to his generals, his expression stern. All of you, get me shit. The generals stood frozen, their minds reeling. After making an example out of him and grilling him, he wants to smear Azerat with shit? Meanwhile, in a serene forest far from the chaos, a figure known as Aged Kimchi walked calmly. His demeanor was composed, a stark contrast to the turmoil in the demon world. He heard cries for help and approached two individuals, one injured. They pleaded, please help us. Aged Kimchi's expression remained calm as he approached. The two men recoiled, one exclaiming, he looks so fucking suspicious though. He looks horrifyingly suspicious. Aged Kimchi asked the injured man, did you hurt your leg? And picked him up onto his shoulder. The injured man introduced himself as Envoy Revaj Asrahan and his servant, Dial Frontera. He asked Aged Kimchi to introduce himself. Aged Kimchi replied, starting from now, that's what I need to find out. With that, he carried Revaj towards the nearby houses, Diol leading the way, casting nervous glances back at the enigmatic figure. Demon Lord Kratos sat atop his towering, sinister throne, a dense demonic aura enveloping the grand, cold hall around him. His crimson eyes, usually sharp and malevolent, appeared distant, clouded with memories of a lifelong past. In another world, in what felt like a different age, he had been Kim Jang-cheol, an ordinary graduate student pursuing agricultural studies at Korea University. Fate had twisted his existence overnight, placing him in the body of the Demon King Kratos, the ultimate boss character in his favorite brutal RPG game, Paladin of Blood. It was a cliched tale often heard, but the horror of it was now his reality. The echo of heavy footsteps filled the chamber as Zephyros, a tall and cold-faced demon commander, entered, halting before the throne. His face bore a disciplined seriousness as he reported the grim news. The demon army, long starved and maddened, stood gathered outside the fortress gates. The forces awaited Kratos' command to descend upon the realms of humans and elves alike, ready to tear them apart for sustenance. The demons had suffered too long, driven to cannibalism and despair by the desolate, infertile land they inhabited. Kratos rose from his seat, his demonic visage composed, as the sea of bloodthirsty generals and soldiers awaited his words. He began with the expected ferocity, his voice booming across the castle walls, declaring an end to their starvation through the imminent invasion. He spoke of their history of suffering, of consuming their own brethren to survive, and promised a future etched into the annals of history through bloodshed. Yet, in a sudden and shocking turn, Kratos issued an unprecedented command. The war was to be halted. The attack called off. Instead, he declared that the demons would abandon their plans for slaughter and embark on a new path: agriculture, farming. The hall fell into stunned silence, disbelief freezing the demon generals where they stood. One amongst them immediately protested, deeming the idea absurd, but Kratos, his fierce exterior faltering, hissed threateningly, his own fears gnawing at him internally. He had little choice. His memories of Kim Jang-chil's life haunted him. In that world, he had been an exemplary agricultural student, outshining others to the point of becoming an overworked tool for his professors. Jang-chil had once believed that rising to the top would bring prosperity and happiness, but instead, it left him exhausted, used, and disillusioned. Professors burdened him with their work under the guise of mentorship while reaping the rewards. Angry and desperate, he sought solace in gaming, pouring himself into Paladin of Blood, a notoriously difficult RPG that no one had cleared 19 times, except him. His sole source of dopamine was victory over impossible odds, driving him to sacrifice sleep and sanity. Upon finally conquering the game for the 19th time, his overjoyed declaration of dominance was abruptly followed by his soul being whisked away into the very world of the game. Unfortunately, it wasn't the strongest character, aged Kimchi, he possessed. Instead, he found himself inside Kratos, an overpowered boss in appearance but ultimately doomed within the game's storyline. As Zephyros continued his grim updates about the demonic army's deteriorating morale and infighting, Kratos felt the noose tighten around his neck. His generals were watching for any sign of weakness to betray him, and the terrifying, now unbound figure of aged Kimchi was mercilessly hunting down those loyal to Kratos. The mere sight of a video projection showing aged Kimchi's gruesome slaughter of one of Kratos' generals turned Kratos pale. Aged Kimchi's eerie, vacant stare and savage attacks sent a cold dread through him. Escaping into the human world was futile, as aged Kimchi would follow and eviscerate him. Staying would mean eventual assassination by his own subordinates. He was mercilessly hunting down those loyal to Kratos. The mere sight of a video projection showing aged Kimchi's gruesome slaughter of one of Kratos' generals turned Kratos pale. Aged Kimchi's eerie, vacant stare and savage attacks sent a cold dread through him. Escaping into the human world was futile, as aged Kimchi would follow and eviscerate him. Staying would mean eventual assassination by his own subordinates. He was mercilessly hunting down those loyal to Kratos. Aged Kimchi's eerie, vacant stare and savage attacks sent a cold dread through him. Escaping into the human world was futile, as aged would mean eventual assassination by his own subordinates. He was mercilessly hunting down those loyal to Kratos. Aged Kimchi's eerie, vacant stare and savage attacks sent a cold dread through him. Escaping into the human world was futile, as aged would mean eventual assassination by his own subordinates. He was mercilessly hunting down those loyal to Kratos. Aged Kimchi's eerie, vacant stare and savage attacks sent a cold dread through him. Escaping into the human world was futile, as aged would mean eventual assassination by his own subordinates. He was mercilessly hunting down those loyal to Kratos. Aged Kimchi's eerie, vacant stare and savage attacks sent a cold dread through him. Escaping into the human world was futile, as aged would mean eventual assassination by his own subordinates. He was mercilessly hunting down those loyal to Kratos. Aged Kimchi's eerie, vacant stare and savage attacks sent a cold dread through him. Escaping into the human world was futile, as aged would mean eventual assassination by his own subordinates. He was mercilessly hunting down those loyal to Kratos. Aged Kimchi's eerie, vacant stare and savage attacks sent a cold dread through him. Escaping into the human world was futile, as aged would mean eventual assassination by his own subordinates. was mercilessly hunting down those loyal to Kratos. Aged Kimchi's eerie, vacant stare and savage attacks sent a cold dread through him. Escaping into the human world was futile, as aging would mean eventual assassination by his own subordinates. Was mercilessly hunting down those loyal to Kratos. Aged Kimchi's eerie, vacant stare and savage attacks sent a... Kratos stared at the glowing message in front of him, a brow raised in bewilderment. Happy points? He mused, half under his breath, his thoughts drifting. I know this, but what's the use? Can it get me a discount on ice cream? Do they even have ice cream in this world? His mind wandered, imagining the frosty, sweet treat, though the very thought of it seemed out of place in the barren, war-torn lands he now ruled. But as if to answer his musings, the message shot back sharply. No! What kind of game world would have ice cream? Kratos flinched, surprised. The voice had startled him, its tone sharp and cold like an icy gust of wind. Wait, I can talk to this thing? He blinked in disbelief, wondering if his mind was playing tricks on him. The message, not bothering to wait for an answer, continued. For every soldier in the demon army who feels happiness from a full stomach, you'll earn 1 happy point. These points are valuable, as you can use them to purchase stats to increase your strength. A chart of his strength appeared before him, and Kratos furrowed his brow. 20% of my strength, he thought, scanning the numbers. I need more. I need more power. The voice chimed in again, somewhat dismissively. To purchase a 10% increase in stamina, you need 50 happy points. Kratos clicked his tongue in annoyance, his frustration evident. 50? That's way too much. I'll never get that many. But then, a thought struck him. Wait, if I can farm happy points, maybe I can gather enough to make myself stronger. That's the key, isn't it? His determination started to flare up like a spark in the darkness. I'll become stronger. I'll increase my survival rate. I'll make this army thrive. His eyes glinted with a demonic resolve, a sinister grin spreading across his face, sharp teeth gleaming in the pale light. Baal, kneeling before him, could see the change in Kratos' expression. He winced, eyes wide, as the grin twisted into something dark, unsettling. He couldn't help but think, this is not the face of a kind leader. He'll tear me apart if I don't do as he says. He never saved me for good reasons. He's only using me. As Kratos turned away from the thoughts swirling in his mind, he raised his voice, calling out to his generals waiting below the cliff. Oi, you lot, his voice boomed, full of command. In his hands he held the giant, cracked eggshell of a seagull, the pale, fragile material stark against the dark crimson sky. Watch this, Kratos smirked, raising the shell high above his head. I'm going to throw this eggshell filled with seagull excrement. Make sure you catch it. The demon generals below exchanged looks of confusion and disgust. What is he? One of them muttered. Kratos, without a second thought, hurled the eggshell, and the generals scrambled, their faces contorted in revulsion as the foul substance splattered over them. What the hell? One of them shouted in frustration. Kratos stood at the edge of the cliff, looking down at them with a gleam in his eyes. This is farming, he thought, his mind spinning with ideas. First step, gather manure. Seagull droppings, eggshells, burnt tree ashes. I'll mix it all together, grind it well, and create fertile soil for the crops. His eyes narrowed as he pictured the process, imagining the grind of the materials, the labor involved. The thought excited him, made his pulse quicken. He turned to Sergei, the cold monarch, one of his generals with many arms. Sergei, he commanded coldly, crush and grind all of this. Sergei, visibly disgusted, glared at him. What? You want me to do this? I, the cold monarch. My arms aren't made for this kind of filthy work, she bellowed, her anger radiating through the air. Kratos' red eyes locked onto her, a chilling gaze that silenced the air around them. Is that so? Fine. I'll find something easier for you, he said with cold precision, his voice laced with an unmistakable threat. He pointed to Aserat, who was tied up and looking helpless. Stay still and don't move. That's your new task. Red eyes locked onto her, a chilling gaze that silenced the air around them. Is that so? Fine. I'll find something easier for you, he said with cold precision, his voice laced with an unmistakable threat. He pointed to Asarat, who was tied up and looking helpless. Stay still and don't move. That's your new task. Red eyes locked onto her, a chilling gaze that silenced the air around them. Is that so? Fine. I'll find something easier for you, he said with cold precision, his voice laced with an unmistakable threat. He pointed to Asarat, who was tied up and looking helpless. Stay still and don't move. That's your new task. Red eyes locked onto her, a chilling gaze that silenced the air around them. Is that so? Fine. I'll find something easier for you, he said with cold precision, his voice laced with an unmistakable threat. He pointed to Asarat, who was tied up and looking helpless. Stay still and don't move. That's your new task. Red eyes locked onto her, a chilling gaze that silenced the air around them. Is that so? Fine. I'll find something easier for you, he said with cold precision, his voice laced with an unmistakable threat. He pointed to Asarat, who was tied up and looking helpless. Stay still and don't move. That's your new task. Red eyes locked onto her, a chilling gaze that silenced the air around them. Is that so? Fine. I'll find something easier for you, he said with cold precision, his voice laced with an unmistakable threat. He pointed to Asarat, who was tied up and looking helpless. Stay still and don't move. That's your new task. Red eyes locked onto her, a chilling gaze that silenced the air around them. Is that so? Fine. I'll find something easier for you, he said with cold precision, his voice laced with an unmistakable threat. He pointed to Asarat, who was tied up and looking helpless. Stay still and don't move. That's your new task. Red eyes locked onto her, a chilling gaze that silenced the air around them. Is that so? Fine. I'll find something easier for you, he said with cold precision, his voice laced with an unmistakable threat. He pointed to Asarat, who was tied up and looking helpless. A chilling gaze that silenced. He pointed to Back outside, the father's mind shattered as he heard the footsteps of Kratos approaching. He looked up in fear, sensing the arrival of the Demon Lord. Demon Lord? He stammered. Kratos, standing tall and imposing, his eyes cold and uncaring, gazed at the low-ranking demon with unnerving calmness. You still have the strength to shout? He remarked almost with amusement. Take him. The father's desperate cries for his daughter echoed in the stillness. Wait! What about Flute? You can't just leave her here? The higher-ranked demons will eat her alive? But Kratos remained impassive. How many do we have? He asked, his voice emotionless. Zephyros replied, 20 demons, Demon Lord. We still need 30 more. Kratos' eyes flickered momentarily to the child, now standing in the doorway, her small, tear-streaked face staring at him. For just a second, his expression softened, a fleeting memory flickering in his mind. He remembered her from his past life as aged Kimchi, the same girl he had coldly killed in the game. His gaze turned back to the father, his features hardening once again. Stop all illegal acts of cannibalism among our kind, he ordered in a voice that left no room for argument. Zephyros, gather the remaining demons. Everyone starts farming immediately. The father's heart shattered once again as he realized the full extent of Kratos' cruelty, but there was no escape. His last desperate hope was that someone might save his daughter from the horror she was about to face. The dark, twisted world continued to spin, its cruel forces ever at play, each action adding another layer to the story that would ultimately define the fate of all who lived in this cursed land. But one thing was certain, no one was safe from Kratos' growing thirst for power. Deep within the sprawling, vast dominion of the Demon Lord, there lay a region known as Chavin de Centaur, the deepest and most remote territory under his command. This forsaken expanse was divided into 5 major areas, and it was here, in the 5th furthest region, that life hung by a fragile thread. The land was merciless. At night, the cold froze the very marrow in one's bones, while the day brought searing heat that blistered the flesh. The climate was brutal and unforgiving, reminiscent of the Andean highlands. In ages past, the people of the Andes had faced similar hardships. Food had been scarce, and hunger gnawed at them like a relentless beast. In desperation, they resorted to consuming poisonous wild potatoes. At the time, a question had arisen among them. Would this choice seal their fate, bringing death upon them all? But human nature is such that it defies expectation. Humans have always been capable of turning even the most forbidden things into something edible. It was Baal who informed Kratos that everything had been laid in place. Kratos acknowledged the report with a curt nod of appreciation. Baal was exerting the full might of his strength, using his entire body to stomp down upon the poisonous potatoes scattered across the land. The plan was meticulous, to freeze the tubers through the 5 bitterly cold nights. Then, as the sun's fury descended upon them during the day, Baal would deliver his meteor stomp, melting them in one brutal impact. This alternating cycle of freezing and heating would cause the poison within the potatoes to leak out, evaporating under the relentless sun. They would repeat this ritual, freezing, stomping, evaporating, until the potatoes were finally dried. Once stored away and cooked ever so slightly, these wild tubers would be transformed into something edible. They would finally complete the process known as chuno. Kratos, without further delay, ordered Baal to gather the farming squad responsible for manure production. It was time for a snack break, and he intended for them to enjoy the first of the freshly made chuno. Soon, the weary farming squad assembled at a clearing. The Demon Lord stood before them and commanded that each of them take 2 of the prepared potatoes. Zephyros, ever inquisitive, spoke up. "There's still a lot of potatoes left, isn't there? Why don't we just make more of these?" Kratos sighed, sharing his doubt. "Perhaps there isn't much left. If we intend to feed the entire demon army, what we have now is far from sufficient. That's why, obviously, the remaining potatoes must be planted. We need to grow them 1,000-fold. Worry clouded the faces of the farming squad. Some of them whispered among themselves, fearful. One demon spoke aloud, voicing the anxiety they all felt. "Is it really safe to eat these? My cousin died after eating this stuff." At this, Dirok's temper flared. "You fool! Even Flute ate this and she's perfectly fine," he barked. He explained, albeit impatiently, that the Demon Lord himself had already altered the potato's nature. It was safe now. But the skeptics among them weren't so easily convinced. One of them muttered, "Then look at Lord Kratos' face. Does he look like the type to give us food out of kindness? He's probably just eager to watch us eat this and then roll on the ground in agony." Dirok clenched his jaw in frustration, but without a word, he took one of the potatoes and gulped it down. His eyes welled up with tears as he praised the Demon Lord. His voice trembled, overcome with emotion. The rest of the farming squad watched him, holding their breath. When Dirok didn't drop dead on the spot, they hesitated no longer. One by one, they bit into the chuno. To their astonishment, it was good. Edible. Hope spread through them like wildfire, and soon chants praising the Demon Lord Kratos echoed across the land. Kratos, however, was less than pleased by the chant. He grimaced. In truth, he didn't care much for such displays and intended to change it later. Zephyros, sharp-eyed as ever, noticed the expression on Kratos' face. A flicker of something else appeared in his mind. Perhaps Kratos had no doubt in his heart that he could truly cultivate edible food in this barren wasteland. Maybe, just maybe, he might even bring an end to the tragedy of starvation. For the first time in ages, a portion of the demon army felt a sliver of happiness, their stomachs warm with food. 50 points were added to Kratos' status, his HP rising to 51. It wasn't a huge increase, but it was decent enough to make him slightly stronger. At that moment, he had no clear idea what would be the most beneficial way to use these points, but one thing was certain, he would keep gathering them. Turning to Zephyros, Kratos gave another order. "We're not splitting the manure squad and the potato gatherers anymore," Zephyros called out to the farming squad, drawing their attention to himself. "Once you're done with work for the day, spread word in the village. Edible food can now be grown on this land. And hear this, any demon who digs up wild potatoes will receive food vouchers. These can be exchanged for chuno. Understood?" Zephyros was as intelligent as he looked. Though he could be insufferably annoying at times, Kratos admitted, if only silently, that Zephyros was one of his greatest assets. Elsewhere, Flute was smiling. The demons of the village were digging up wild potatoes with unwavering faith for her. One half of them would continue producing chuno, while the other half would focus on making manure. The operation was running smoothly. Now it was time for a new assignment. Asurat was being considered for a new position. Kratos gave him clear instructions, and, when all preparations were complete, unleashed a fierce lightning strike upon him. Asurat screamed, writhing under the surge of power. The objective was clear: to produce nitrogen. With enough manure accumulated, it was time to move on to the next step. The land was vast. It stretched endlessly in every direction, and the farming squad, subsisting on little more than a few chuno balls, couldn't possibly cover it all. Asurat pleaded, voice hoarse, for Kratos to just kill him, but a great demon general was expected to function even while starving, without rest if necessary. Yet it was growing clear that reinforcements were needed. Kratos turned to Zephyros, inquiring whether he had made the request for additional troops from the Star Masters. Zephyros confirmed with a nod. "They ordered me to stop the fighting and send as many troops as possible to assist in farming. I've sent messengers to the Star Masters who oversee each area, but none have replied." A dark thought crossed Kratos' mind. Did the messengers collapse from hunger on their way? He left the remark hanging, but the reality was grim. With the current number of troops, it was practically impossible to spread the manure across the enormous land. Meanwhile, back in the Demon's Land, the First Star area, known ominously as Cliff of the Dead, the situation was being closely monitored. Based on reports from scout demons, it became known that Kratos had ceased all warfare and begun farming, successfully producing edible food. Saruthul, a cruel and ambitious demon, scoffed. In his mind, Kratos was merely scared of him. Saruthul grew stronger with every demon death, and by reducing the number of starving demons, Kratos was merely trying to weaken him. Saruthul turned to Fikamir. "Have you dealt with the messengers sent to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th star areas?" he demanded. Fikamir's voice was cold, emotionless. "Yes, Lord Saruthul. The other Star Masters remain unaware of both the war being halted and the farming project." Saruthul's malevolence deepened. He wanted the demons to starve. Only then would they become his food and his army. He declared that he would destroy Kratos and take his place as Demon Lord. "Fikamir," he ordered softly, but with deadly intent. "Destroy everything related to Kratos' farming. Leave nothing behind." Without delay, Fikamir entered Kratos' territory. There, he saw Asurat suspended in the center of the land, a living corpse, a terrifying example to all. Fikamir smirked. "You're truly vicious, Kratos," he muttered, almost in admiration. He assured Asurat that Lord Saruthul appreciated such ferocity and would gladly take him in after Kratos' inevitable downfall. Raising his power, Fikamir unleashed a wave of destructive energy upon the land, determined to ruin it beyond salvation. A voice from one of his men reported, "This is the manure the scout demons mentioned." Fikamir sneered. "Throw it everywhere. They might try to regather it. Scatter it evenly. Mix it into the soil so thoroughly that no one can find a trace of it. Bury it deep." As the destruction was underway, Kratos contemplated the worsening situation. Zephyros asked in a grave tone, "What are they doing?" Kratos' voice was low, explaining, "The manure needs to be ground finely and mixed into the ground, but to Asurat's eyes, doing so is impossible. It's beyond the farming squad's ability." Asurat, barely conscious, let a twisted grin spread across his bloodied face. He believed, even in his pain, that it was over for Kratos, but a gnawing question remained in his mind. What was Kratos truly trying to achieve in this cursed, barren land? The battle of starvation, schemes, and survival was far from over. The Wraths knew, deep down, that there was no end to this ordeal. Despite that, they kept themselves entertained, telling one another to stop lazing around. The warning was clear. If they left even a single patch of land untouched, Demon King Kratos would turn the entire area into a farmland, and then no one would escape the endless work. One of them, in particular, appreciated number 2718, a hardworking, reliable soul who had been putting in extra effort today. They teased one another, exchanging playful insults and half-hearted complaints, but they couldn't deny the admiration they felt for him. Even those who usually lazed about found themselves a little inspired. There was something oddly satisfying about looking back at all the work they had accomplished, a fleeting sense of pride that, for once, they had done something productive. Their banter echoed around the fields as they continued working, calling each other by ridiculous names, throwing light-hearted insults, and simultaneously praising their own skills. They joked about losing track of time and how they were probably going to drop dead from exhaustion, but, as they agreed with a laugh, it wouldn't be such a bad death if it meant dying while being productive. Fikimir, watching them, felt an odd warmth. He praised their efforts with a grin, telling them to rest now, for the time had come to see how Kratos would react to all of this. Tiling the field had taken longer than expected, but so had the Wraths themselves. The work wasn't perfect, yet it was theirs. Meanwhile, an entirely different problem loomed. All those harvested potatoes, they were in a dormant state. No sprouts would grow, not like this. It was like the potatoes had been sleeping peacefully within the earth, and someone had yanked them out by the hair. The sudden shock had made them faint. Their biological rhythm had come to a halt. The only way to properly break their dormancy would be to leave them for 2 to 3 weeks at a consistent temperature of 4 degrees Celsius, then abruptly move them to a warmer, darker environment. That abrupt change would shock them awake. Kratos had initially thought of asking Sergi to imbue them with her cold energy, but she was livid at the moment. Besides, Hartox was also up to something suspicious, and getting caught between those two when they were angry would only mean disaster. He'd have to think of another solution. Well, it's okay to raise the storage temperature to around 23 degrees, he muttered to himself. As a last-ditch attempt, he had the farmer soldiers start doing squats, hoping the body heat would help warm the area, but they quickly wore themselves out, groaning in exhaustion, and that plan fell apart too. With time running out, Kratos turned to the Zephyrs. Let's go to the farm. I'll do what I can for now. At the very least, I need to imbue the soil with nitrogen. The Zephyrs obeyed, and as they reached the field, the stench of mixed-up earth filled the area. The dirt was ready, tilled, overturned, and pungent. It had taken a miracle to get this far, but the farmland was finally prepared for planting. Fikamir's eyes lit up when he saw the shock on Kratos' face. The Demon King hadn't expected this much progress. Fikamir could barely contain his excitement, though it was short-lived. Baal caught him immediately. Kratos, narrowing his eyes, recognized the face. "Wait a second, aren't you one of the bosses from the Cliff of the Dead?" he demanded. "What the hell are you doing here? Did you show up on your own after hearing the call for reinforcements?" Before Fikamir could reply, Zephyrs interjected. "Why are you hitting him?" before he even gets a chance to answer. Kratos crossed his arms and huffed. It looked like he was trying to hide something. Beating someone up is the most efficient way to deal with that. Fikamir, though bruised, let out a weak laugh. As expected of the Demon King, however, I, Fikamir, will not speak so easily. Baal, with no patience for games, promptly beat him up. After taking a hefty 50-horsepower hit to upgrade his stamina, Fikamir finally cracked. All right, I'll talk. To be honest, I was ordered to mess up the farmland, to starve you all." A heavy silence followed. In the end, it wasn't Fikamir but Saruthul who had cut off the reinforcements. Kratos clenched his fists, a cold gleam in his eyes. "Yeah, that makes sense. Saruthul only gets stronger the more demons are starving. This is an act of revolution." Zephyrs spoke up. "This might be our chance. If you, Kratos, manage to take down the first Star Master Saruthul, the demons who've been complaining about the suspension of the expedition will see it as a warning." Kratos gritted his teeth. "Even if that wasn't an issue, those pests will keep getting in the way of my farming if I leave them be. I need a surefire way to deal with them." Zephyrs looked grave. "The problem is how to defeat Saruthul. He has the ability to turn his body ghost-like. Even in the game, Saruthul was a nightmare, darting all over the Cliff of the Dead, already one of the most complicated maps. The entire stage turned into a sick game of hide-and-seek." Kratos' voice was low. If it's too hard to kill pests because they hide, then you have to drag the pests out of their nests. Elsewhere, Flute stood in front of Asurat, staring at him silently. Asurat frowned. "What the hell are you looking at?" Flute gave a small bow and said, "Thank you, Asurat. I heard it's thanks to your sacrifice that we have food now. I wanted to thank you." Asurat's expression twisted in fury. "How dare you mock me? I'll kill you, you damn brat!" he shouted as Flute took off running. Seething with rage, Asurat cursed. "Just you wait, Kratos. The moment I get free, I'll come find you and kill you." Back at the farmland, Kratos, along with the others, brought Fikamir to the very place where Asurat was tied up. Asurat's eyes gleamed with hope, thinking this might be his chance for freedom. Maybe now he wouldn't have to be a rotisserie chicken all day and night. But to his horror, Kratos struck them both, setting up 2 lightning rods this time. Now, both Asurat and Fikamir would share the same fate. Far away, Saruthal's heart tightened in worry for Fikamir. The barren wasteland, long a desolate scar upon the land, now bore the crude marks of makeshift farmland. It was a grim, unnatural sight, the earth blackened and scarred by countless lightning strikes, its metallic scent thick in the air, mingling with the acrid stench of scorched ground and dying wraiths. The night hung heavy, oppressive, weighed down by an atmosphere of relentless violence. Faint electric arcs still danced along the furrows of churned soil, remnants of the Demon King's fury. From the shadows at the edge of the battlefield, Saruthal watched with narrowed, furious eyes. The sight before him, of his comrade Fikamir, broken and smoldering, still tied like a charred offering over the scorched land, twisted something cold in his gut. In a low, desperate voice, little more than a whisper carried off by the cruel winds, Saruthal murmured, "Fikamir being struck like that, he must be in unbearable pain. Please, I beg you, stop this already." But his plea, frail and unheard, vanished into the darkness, lost upon deaf ears. For the Demon King Kratos stood at the heart of the field, merciless and unrelenting. The cruel smirk playing upon his lips suggested no intention of ceasing. His sharp eyes flickered upward, catching a movement in the night sky. A thin, ghostly shape hovered there, a reconnaissance wraith. Kratos recognized it immediately, the secret surveillance creature from the accursed game that had once imprisoned his soul. His lips curled into a sneer, and with a cruel chuckle he muttered to himself, "Humph, a reconnaissance wraith. So, you're keeping close watch on us, huh? You dare try to ruin my harvest? I swear I'll make you regret it, completely." Nearby, a small figure crouched diligently in the dirt. Flute, a demon child with bright, innocent eyes and mud-caked hands, was digging with all the seriousness of a seasoned farmer. Before her, Asurat hung miserably, his arms bound tight, his body beaten and half-burned, scowling down at the little girl's cheerful effort. "Well," Flute chirped happily, looking up at Asurat with a hopeful grin. "The Demon King and the 4 heavenly generals, all the adults, are working so hard on the farming. So I wanted to help too." Asurat snarled, his lips pulling back from sharp teeth as he growled, "You stupid low-ranking demon brat. What's the point of digging there? This asshole beside me already plowed the whole field. At least do something actually useful, idiot." At his words, Flute froze mid-dig, her face a perfect picture of childish surprise. Her eyes widened as she gasped, "Eh? Fikamir, you plowed the field too? Thank you. Thank you for plowing the field and for becoming a lightning rod for us." Fikamir, despite the burns scorched across his skin and the blood trickling from his mouth, managed a pained grin. His voice, though weary and strained, carried a warm, fond note as he croaked, "You're such a cutie. You made all this hard work worth it." Asurat only grunted, scowling deeper. "Shh, what's the big deal about plowing some field, huh? Farming in this godforsaken wasteland? You idiots really think that's possible? That dawn potato or whatever you're trying to grow isn't even sprouting. They say if you keep the potato storage warm, the sprouts grow quicker, but what does it matter? You're all going to starve to death anyway." Flute, however, was undeterred. With a gleeful shout, she bolted off toward the storage area, calling for the potato sprout in her bright, sing-song voice, leaving Asurat fuming and muttering curses under his breath. Not far away, Zephyrs, one of Kratos' commanders, stood at the Demon King's side, a flicker of unease crossing his sharp gaze. He leaned in, speaking in a quiet, cautious tone. "I have a slight concern about your plan, my lord. Sarathul must know this is a trap. Will he really risk coming here just to rescue Fikamir, even now? Kratos chuckled darkly, shaking his head in amusement. Of course not. First, he'll send his subordinates. If we want that idiot to crawl out himself, we'll have to eliminate every single one of his lackeys first. Leave none alive. Zero high above, Saruthul's lip curled in disgust as he overheard the distant exchange. He snarled, his claws clenching tightly. Kratos, that fool, does he really think just sitting there waiting to ambush will make my subordinates show up? How utterly naive. While it's unfortunate for Fikamir, my only true goal is to ruin their harvest. Raising one clawed hand to the black sky, his eyes gleaming with cruel intent, Saruthul gave a command. Go, my crop wraiths! Crush every single potato, trample them into oblivion, leave no trace behind. A monstrous cloud of grotesque, writhing wraiths burst from the cliffs like a plague of starving locusts. They swooped toward the makeshift fields, their countless forms merging into a single mass of death. Yet Kratos merely grinned, his arms spreading wide to welcome the assault. Just as expected, I knew the crop wraiths would come. Welcome to your graves. A memory stirred in his mind of the first time he encountered these horrors in the cursed game. Pure, inescapable despair. They had been Sarathul's second elite force, infamous for their numbers and terrifying abilities. Swarming in droves, they latched onto victims, rapidly aging them to dust. Worse still, they copied the skills of anyone they touched, an infuriating nuisance and a nightmare in battle. But this time, Kratos had a plan. But there's a way to wipe you out, he growled. Lifting one hand crackling with demonic lightning, he sent arcs of searing electricity into the sky. Who wants to be fried first? I just need to attack them with lightning-based items. The crop wraiths realized the trap too late. Their shrill, distorted voices screeched in terror. It's a trap! Run! Kratos' grin only widened. No! The real trap comes next. The blood, still smeared across the earth from Kratos' devastating Phase 2 ability, Wide Area Blood Strike, began to glow, pulsing with malevolent energy. The wraiths faltered, their forms twitching in alarm. What the hell is that blood? They cried. This! Kratos declared coldly. Now we can hit you with physical attacks. Without hesitation, he turned to his soldiers. Deploy the farm guards. They might look unimpressive, but on the final map, they're the strongest units. These crop wraiths are nothing to them. The farm guards, ordinary in appearance but absurdly powerful in this twisted battlefield, surged forward, weapons gleaming. As the guards clashed with the wraiths, Kratos burst into laughter. Oh, how I really do feel like a ruthless, smart alpha demon king. Maybe I actually belong in this world. Those few wraiths who had not yet been incinerated or shredded attempted to flee, but Kratos was always a step ahead. One rogue wraith gave chase to a terrified flute, its ghastly tendrils reaching for her. Asurat scowled, his expression hardening, while Dirok cried out the child's name, his voice thick with worry. Kratos clicked his tongue in annoyance. There's always these clueless stragglers. Whatever. The priority now is to wipe out as many escaping crop wraiths as possible. His sharp gaze swept the field, quickly assessing the battlefield's shifting tide. Touch! That bloody strike won't reach far enough. Are you an idiot? What are you trying to achieve by throwing that? And then he saw it. Amid the scorched, ruined soil, a small trembling sprout poked out of the earth, a potato sprout. His eyes widened, then gleamed with sudden, feral delight. What? The wraith's accelerated aging had inadvertently jump-started the stalled biological clocks of the crops. Against all odds, the first sprout had emerged. Without hesitation, Kratos rushed forward, scooping Flute into his arms. Good work! You did good, kid, he murmured, a rare, genuine smile tugging at his lips. Turning to his soldiers, his voice thundered. Farm guards, listen up! Forget luring Saruthul out. From this point forward, we're going on the offensive. That'll benefit us more. The battlefield shifted. The Demon King's harvest, and his war, had only just begun. Asurat lay beneath the vast sky, his gaze fixed on the sun above. A strange calm washed over him as the light warmed his face. Thoughts scattered through his mind like drifting leaves. Who am I? What am I living for? Yet amidst the confusion, he found himself acknowledging the simple, undeniable beauty of the sun. It was the source of life, and in that moment, he felt grateful to face it. But serenity was a fleeting thing, as a familiar emptiness gnawed at his insides. Hunger, primal and insistent, made itself known once again. Even in his worn and battered state, the craving for life itself had not abandoned him. Before long, Flute appeared in the distance, rushing toward Azeroth with a bundle of provisions. He wore a grin, evidently pleased with recent events. Thanks to Azeroth's earlier advice about planting potato sprouts, things had turned out surprisingly well. The harvest of Chunos was bountiful, and Lord Kratos had gathered a sizable force of farmer soldiers to continue sprouting potatoes across the land. The mere mention of food stirred something within Azeroth. The word alone made his pulse quicken. His hunger sharpened into a ravenous focus. Flute, noticing the look in his eye, quickly offered him a handful of Chunos. Yet instinctively, Azeroth's mind teetered between hunger and hostility. He felt his demonic urges flare, a violent impulse surfacing unbidden. For a tense moment, it seemed violence might erupt, but Flute, undeterred, gently pressed the offering toward him. Asuret seized the Chunos and devoured them greedily. The taste was exquisite, so overwhelmingly satisfying that it stirred a dormant part of his demon bloodline. A fleeting sense of happiness bloomed within him, an unexpected warmth that momentarily soothed his monstrous nature. As the Chunos filled his belly, a surge of strength returned to his body. His HP increased to 302, and somewhere within the system, Kratos earned additional points as a result of Azeroth's revived state. Elsewhere, Kratos stood at the head of his gathered forces, surveying the newly recruited demons who had received Chuno in the previous round. Counting them, he confirmed the number at 300. Among them was a particular kid he recognized, though the identity of the other new recruit remained unknown. No matter. Kratos reasoned that the more HP accumulated within his forces, the better their chances for survival, especially with the upcoming Saruthul raid looming on the horizon. The former core, reformed and restless, pressed forward in the hopes of a plentiful harvest. On the enemy's side, mocking voices rang out. Wraiths jeered from across the severed bridge, taunting Kratos and his troops. They believed they had trapped them by cutting off their only crossing. To them, Kratos was a fool who had recklessly leapt down like a moron, sealing his fate. But in truth, the situation was anything but foolish. Every step had been calculated. Kratos smirked to himself. This was all according to his plan. His strategy relied on the food wraith's innate fear of cursed potatoes. By charging in alone and unarmed, he baited them into overconfidence. On the other side, Saruthul commanded the food wraiths to attack. Seeing Kratos without any visible potatoes, Saruthul considered this an easy victory. The command was given. Even a single touch would mean defeat for Kratos. But as the enemy surged toward him, Kratos activated his secret technique. Quantum Leap, Move. In an instant, he vanished from sight, phasing through the walls and reappearing above his enemies. The wraiths recoiled in alarm, their taunts replaced by startled cries. No one could understand how he moved so quickly. One moment he was in front of them, the next, he had ascended to the upper level. Desperation gripped the wraiths as they scrambled to catch him. But it was no use. The demon lord had disappeared like a ghost, moving beyond their reach in an instant. Kratos activated his secret technique. Quantum Leap, Move. In an instant, he vanished from sight, phasing through the walls and reappearing above his enemies. The wraiths recoiled in alarm, their taunts replaced by startled cries. No one could understand how he moved so quickly. One moment he was in front of them, the next, he had ascended to the upper level. Desperation gripped the wraiths as they scrambled to catch him. But it was no use. The demon lord had disappeared like a ghost, moving beyond their reach in an instant. Kratos activated his secret technique. Quantum Leap, Move. In an instant, he vanished from sight, phasing through the walls and reappearing above his enemies. The wraiths recoiled in alarm, their taunts replaced by startled cries. No one could understand how he moved so quickly. One moment he was in front of them, the next, he had ascended to the upper level. Desperation gripped the wraiths as they scrambled to catch him. But it was no use. The demon lord had disappeared like a ghost, moving beyond their reach in an instant. Kratos activated his secret technique. Quantum Leap, Move. In an instant, he vanished from sight, phasing through the walls and reappearing above his enemies. The wraiths recoiled in alarm, their taunts replaced by startled cries. No one could understand how he moved so quickly. One moment he was in front of them, The next, he had ascended to the upper level. Desperation gripped the wraiths as they scrambled to catch him, but it was no use. The demon lord had disappeared like a ghost, moving beyond their reach in an instant. Kratos activated his secret technique. Quantum leap, move. In an instant, he vanished from sight, phasing through the walls and reappearing above his enemies. The wraiths recoiled in alarm, their taunts replaced by startled cries. No one could understand how he moved so quickly. One moment he was in front of them, the next, he had ascended to the upper level. Desperation gripped the wraiths as they scrambled to catch him, but it was no use. The demon lord had disappeared like a ghost, moving beyond their reach in an instant. Kratos activated his secret technique. Quantum leap, move. In an instant, he vanished from sight, phasing through the walls and reappearing above his enemies. The wraiths recoiled in alarm, their taunts replaced by startled cries. No one could understand how he moved so quickly. One moment he was in front of them, the next, he had ascended to the upper level. Desperation gripped the wraiths as they scrambled to catch him, but it was no use. The demon lord had disappeared like a ghost, moving beyond their reach in an instant. Kratos activated his secret technique. Quantum leap, move. In an instant, he vanished from sight, phasing through the walls and reappearing above his enemies. The wraiths recoiled in alarm, their taunts replaced by startled cries. No one could understand how he moved so quickly. One moment he was in front of them, the next, he had ascended to the upper level. Desperation gripped the wraiths as they scrambled to catch him, but it was no use. The demon lord had disappeared like a ghost, moving beyond their reach in an instant. The battle between Kratos and Saruthul was far from over. Saruthul, in his arrogance, sneered at Kratos, taunting him with his supposed superiority. "You're a fool, Kratos! Did you come alone, thinking you could defeat me? You haven't seen my true power." Kratos smirked, his confidence unwavering. "Or maybe I've seen it 19 times, he replied coolly, recalling the countless encounters he had endured while chasing Saruthul, who had persistently fled through the treacherous cliffs. Each time he faced Saruthul's subordinates and wiped them out, growing stronger with every encounter. But Saruthul always managed to escape into the depths, until they finally arrived at a room where the legendary Heart of Ice Spirit lay, an artifact feared across the lands. The Heart of Ice Spirit was a terrifying creation, said to have been forged by an ancient dragon at the cost of its life. It was a cursed frost that trapped spirits in the mortal realm, and Saruthul intended to use its power to summon more followers. The air grew cold as Saruthul began to chant, readying the ritual, but just as his power surged, the paladin arrived, saving the day and triggering the final battle. Saruthul growled, anger evident in his voice. "You're strong, Kratos, which is why I will win this battle." Kratos, ever the strategist, saw through Saruthul's threats. "By perfectly copying your opponent's stats and materializing them, this is the end game." With a flash of insight, Kratos realized that Saruthul now had the same stats as him, and those stats were at their peak, with insane attack power and nearly broken evasion skills. One mistake would mean instant death, but as the battle raged on, the truth became clear. Saruthul had copied the stats of the current Demon King, Gredos, and Gredos wasn't strong anymore. Kratos smirked. "Farming requires brains too." In that moment, the game's interface flashed with a new message. Use HP to purchase various stat upgrades. Without hesitation, Kratos used 50 horsepower to upgrade his dexterity. Saruthul, stunned, howled in agony. "Ah! It hurts! Why are you still perfectly fine?" Kratos remained calm, his voice dripping with confidence. "Because, Saruthul, I know how to farm, and I'm just getting started." Saruthul, enraged, screamed, "Bloody!" But Kratos wasn't finished yet. The next message in the interface appeared. Summon Farmer's Throne. Unlock cost, 100 HP. The Throne of the Farmer King, a legendary item equipped with a variety of sturdy farming tools, materialized before him. Kratos grinned, eyeing the new gear. "Nice! I actually did need some new gear." Saruthul, panting with frustration, glared at him. Kratos raised an eyebrow. Saruthul's eyes narrowed, his voice low and menacing. "Did you think it was over?" "Nope," Kratos replied nonchalantly. "There's always a phase 2 in the second half of a fight, With a roar, Sarathul unleashed his final form, revealing his true origin, the ancient evil dragon. His appearance was monstrous, a terrifying sight to behold. The attack power and HP pool were no joke. Kratos stepped back for a moment, taking it all in. Whoa, it actually looks insane, seeing it in person. Attack power and HP, those are no laughing matter. But hey, he is the boss of the final area before the last boss after all. Sarathul's monstrous form loomed over the battlefield. Hold on, let's talk first, he pleaded, hoping to buy time. But the demons surrounding them had no intention of stopping. They shouted in unison, "For a good harvest!" They charged at Kratos, hurling insults as they tried to stop him. "You dare interfere with our farming? Die! Die!" Sarathul's voice faltered as he screamed, "Ah! Please spare me!" Kratos looked around, taking in the chaos. Well, I could probably beat him if I fought him head-on, but it talks and moves. It kinda doesn't feel right to kill it myself. He paused, his eyes narrowing. But maybe everyone's still too hungry to fight properly. We've been beating him up for a while now, and he still won't die. Maybe we should beat him more efficiently. The message flashed once again. Summon Farmer's Throne. Kratos raised an eyebrow. Huh? The demons, now in awe of Kratos, shouted in reverence, "As expected of the Demon Lord, you didn't just let him die, you had to finish him off with a head smash for the final blow. Too brutal, savage, demonic, a true villain. That's what a Demon King does. Useless small fries like us could never imitate that." "That's right, Kratos. Yes, Kratos, say it." Kratos waved them off, uninterested. "Hey, whatever," he exclaimed, letting out a triumphant roar. "Ah!" In the distance, Fikamir's voice rang out. "Ah!" Asurat, standing nearby, looked up. "Fikamir?" Fikamir's voice trembled with a mix of awe and realization. "I'm ascending." As the fields were plowed and the potato sprouts emerged, Kratos couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. He had gotten rid of all the pests threatening the harvest. The time had come. Kratos looked toward his army, a smile creeping onto his face. "It's time to plant the potatoes." A message appeared on his screen. Mission: defeat Sarathul on the Cliff of the Dead. 20 attempts completed. Kratos blinked, confused. Did I resume from my 19 tries in the game? The interface flashed again. A hidden event triggered. A sealed origin trapped within the heart of Ice Spirit has awakened from misuse. "What the?" Kratos muttered, his eyes widening in surprise. From the depths of the heart of Ice Spirit, a deep voice rumbled. "A dragon?" Kratos' jaw dropped. "T-Bone." And thus, the battle continued, with new challenges and threats emerging from the very heart of the ice. The newly revealed dragon, T-Bone, looked up at Kratos, its large eyes filled with a mixture of awe and confusion. "Dragon! T-Bone!" it exclaimed. "Is this creature Daddy?" The baby dragon's voice quivered as it continued. "I hatched from my egg, and it was so dark all around me. I was so scared, but now Daddy finally found me." Kratos, trying to suppress a grin, simply remarked, "How cute." The dragon hesitated, its voice trembling. Dad?" Nearby, the demons looked on in shock, clearly amazed by the sight. "Whoa! Let's eat it! Chomp, chomp! Munch, munch! Let's eat! Let's eat!" But Kratos, ever the strategist, quickly shouted, "You fools! You have to raise it first to get more out of it!" The dragon recoiled, visibly terrified. "Wait, Daddy's going to eat me?" Kratos looked confused for a moment. "Huh?" Suddenly, a voice from behind them cut through the tension. "Flute! Daddy!" It was then that a group of demons emerged, each one shouting with excitement, "The Farm Corps have returned!" Kratos turned to look as the land transformed before his eyes. Everywhere, potato sprouts began to push through the earth, signaling the successful return of the Farm Corps. "Look, potato sprouts everywhere. Great work, everyone. Thank you for your efforts," one of the demons called out to the others. The baby dragon, still processing the situation, watched as the creatures around it worked. "Huh? I can feel warm energy from everyone. These creatures, they're not scary at all. Ah, I take it back. They're totally terrifying," it shrieked, realizing the demons were far more formidable than it had first thought. "Eek! They're just waiting for me to grow up! Kratos, sensing the baby dragon's fear, furrowed his brow. What should I feed it? I heard baby dragons eat refined gemstones, but there's not a single jewel here, only heaps of rusty old metal, he muttered to himself. Just then, Zephyros, one of his most trusted demons, arrived with troubling news. My lord, reporting in. Kratos responded, looking up, his expression serious. Zephyros continued, as expected, we're facing difficulties building the ridges. Kratos sighed, clearly frustrated. Of course, in this harsh and rocky land, building the ridges, necessary to properly plant crops, was proving to be an exhausting task. The land, full of jagged rocks, made it nearly impossible to construct the necessary mounded earth to delineate the fields and paddies. This isn't a field, it's a coal mine, Kratos thought to himself bitterly. We'll never finish clearing the rocks at this rate. His frustration grew as he considered the manpower required to clear the land. If we keep using this much manpower every day, we'll run out of the chunos we prepared as rewards quickly, he mused. Even if we get reinforcements from the other lords, this problem won't go away. Ugh, if only I could be like the main character of some other comic who can summon a familiar or something, a wombat that clears rocks or whatever. That'd be nice, but enough whining. I have to find a way to fix this somehow. That's what a never-ending series of unpredictable problems is, after all. Suddenly, a voice cut through his thoughts, shouting, Razor wines! Kratos' eyes widened in alarm. Oh crap! I forgot about that! His voice grew urgent as he shouted to his team, This vast wasteland sometimes spawns razor wind events at random. If you get caught in one of those, you'll be shredded to pieces in an instant. Take cover. Hide behind the rocks. Get under something that creates shade. Get down as low as you can. The fierce wind picked up, and even from a distance, the pressure was already immense. Damn! Even from this far away, the wind pressure is already insane, Kratos thought, panic rising in his chest. What I felt in the game was nothing compared to this. A natural disaster. The biggest threat to farming. From behind him, Flute's voice called out in fear, Asurat! Dirok, another of the demons, responded urgently. Flute! Kratos cursed under his breath. Ah! That brat again! Protect her! I'll kill anyone who follows me! Baal, one of his more level-headed demons, tried to reason with him. Demon Lord! It's too dangerous! If you go in there, you could die! Kratos, though, was resolute. I know that, but I can't afford to lose my precious lightning rod or laborer. Farming isn't some laid-back, therapeutic activity where you can just chill and pick apples and pears. Asurat, caught up in the chaos, shouted defiantly, You think you know anything? Get out of the way! Ha! That's a binding knot even one of the 4 heavenly kings can't undo, you idiot. You'll never be able to untie that. Just get out of here already. Asurat continued, completely ignoring the danger. Flute cried out in pain. Ah! Kratos, growing more impatient, gritted his teeth and shouted, To farm is... to live is... going to war after all. Out of the way, kid! Demon Lord, Flute's voice rang out, filled with desperation, but Asurat only laughed. Ha! You'll never get through that knot, idiot. Just then, the baby dragon's voice, filled with wonder, broke through the tension. I can feel the creature's strength. Daddy isn't that sturdy, and yet he still goes that far to help people. My daddy is a kind creature. T-Bone. Kratos, hearing the dragon's admiration, couldn't help but smirk as he observed the situation. The razor wines have weakened. Did he use cold energy to weaken the upward drafts? He muttered to himself. The baby dragon chirped excitedly. Bone! Kratos, eyes wide in disbelief, muttered, No! This is too much for a baby dragon. And with that, the storm raged on, with Kratos caught in the middle of yet another overwhelming challenge, one that would require every bit of his strength, wit, and determination to overcome. Hartok's voice was filled with a cruel determination as he spoke. While the Demon Lord is down right now, I'll cut off his head. His cold words hung in the air as Sergei, standing nearby, quickly followed with a chilling reply. Then after I take out those idiots, Baal and Asurat, one of us will become the new Demon Lord. Hartok nodded grimly. Until then, we're allies. The weight of their dangerous pact settled between them, their eyes briefly meeting as they acknowledged the tension in their shared ambition. Their moment of dark planning was interrupted by a sudden, muttered exclamation from Ugg. He was waiting for us with both eyes wide open, huh? This is our only chance. His voice was a mix of disbelief and urgency, clearly recognizing the gravity of the situation. But Asurat and Baal, oblivious to the scheming taking place around them, overheard the conversation. Baal growled with irritation. "You two, what do you think you're doing?" "The demon lord is sleeping. Do not disturb him," Baal added, his tone serious, a protective edge in his words. Hartok sneered at the suggestion. "That's supposed to be a sleeping face? No wonder he's the demon lord." The mockery in his voice was unmistakable as he looked toward the still form of their ruler. Baal's eyes narrowed as he warned, "If you wake him up, I won't let you off." His threat was a low growl, the gravity of it clear in his posture. Hartok's voice rose, a mix of disbelief and anger. "I get the dumb musclehead acting like this, but Asurat, you too? Are you siding with the demon lord who wants us to farm?" His words cut through the air, challenging Asurat's loyalty. Asurat, however, was calm in his response. "Not quite. I owe him my life from before. I'm just paying back that one debt. Next time, I'll be on your side," he explained, his tone surprisingly level. There was something in his voice that seemed to suggest an inner conflict, though his allegiance was clear for the moment. Hartok scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief. "Have you not realized it yet? Just planting potatoes has brought us tons of problems. The crops will fail and we'll all starve to death. Is that so beyond you?" His frustration was palpable, his belief that farming was a fool's errand fully expressed in his words. Asurat's response was calm, almost philosophical. "That's just how it goes. To not starve, you have to put your life on the line. Well, if I'm risking my life anyway, I prefer to fight. That's more my thing," he said, his eyes showing a quiet defiance, as if he had already made his peace with his choices. Hartok's eyes flared with anger as he muttered bitterly, "You'll regret this, you inferior fools." His words were a curse, but his resolve remained firm. At that moment, Kratos stirred, his body shifting as he groggily woke, letting out a yawn. His groggy voice cut through the tense silence. "The demon lord is awake." Baal's voice followed quickly, confirming, "Asurat, you..." His words trailed off as the realization hit. Asurat, clearly unfazed, gave a shrug. Did you hear that? I wasn't taking your side or anything. I'm just repaying my debt this time," he explained, his words laced with a hint of amusement. Kratos, clearly irritated, cut through the tension with a sharp remark. "Why the hell is the living lightning rod walking around talking like it's normal?" His gaze shifted to Asurat, his voice tinged with frustration. Kratos was quick to take charge. "We don't have time to waste. Mobilize everyone and continue clearing the rubble." His command rang out, the urgency clear in his tone. Baal responded, his voice filled with practicality. "The rocks. Almost all gone. Zephyros is stacking them." Kratos nodded, looking around. "Huh? Hey, Zephyros!" he called, seeking his subordinate's whereabouts. Zephyros, noticing the attention, quickly replied, "Demon Lord, you're awake." Kratos narrowed his eyes, his tone questioning. "Where'd you put all the rocks?" Zephyros gestured vaguely toward the distance. If you mean the rocks, they're over that way." Kratos' gaze followed, and he suddenly stopped, his eyes widening in shock. "Huh? T-Bone?" he exclaimed. From a distance came the excited cry of the baby dragon, T-Bone. "Ah, much munch! I was too small to block the razor wind, but I ate everything without being picky, so now I'll grow faster." The dragon's enthusiasm was infectious, though it also carried the mark of a challenge met and overcome. Kratos' face softened as he called out to the dragon, "T-Bone!" His heart swelled with pride at the dragon's progress. "T-Bone! Bah ha ha! Oh, my sweet baby!" Kratos laughed in relief, his joy clear. He continued, "Razor wines don't come often. It takes time for them to build up. If T-Bone keeps watch from the sky and fires cold air at the right time, we can stop them in advance. It's a pain, but here, without any weather forecasts, we basically have no choice." Zephyros' voice interrupted his reverie. "The reward stockpile of Chuno is running out. Should we make more?" he asked, his concern evident. Kratos shook his head firmly. "There's no need. The first enemy of farming is natural disasters. The second is costs. Their walls we'll have to overcome. His voice was resolute, unwavering in the face of the challenges they all faced. Sergei, taking in the surroundings, sighed, her voice laced with exhaustion. Whew! Ah, this manure stench. Even after days of not going out to the field, it still hasn't gone away. Kratos' gaze fixed on her, his tone now serious. Sergei, I need to speak with you. Sergei raised an eyebrow, a trace of suspicion in her voice. The Demon Lord? He's never come to my room before. What is it? I have nothing to talk about. Kratos, his expression softening, pleaded. I really need your help. Please open the door. Sergei, ever cautious, gave a dry reply. Let's avoid saying anything misleading. No, Kratos responded, his determination unwavering. Not seeing each other's faces is how misunderstandings arise. Sergei's voice grew more insistent. Please go back. But Kratos would not be deterred. No, I'm coming in. Without warning, the door burst open, and Sergei screamed in shock. Kya! Oh my god, are you crazy? Who just barges into a lady's room like that? The hell is that? Kratos, unperturbed, fixed her with an earnest gaze. Sergei, without you, I can't do anything. If it means saving costs, I'll kneel all you want. Right now, I need your sharp and precise blade. Sergei, still flustered by the intrusion, hesitated before finally relenting. If you say that, then fine. I'll at least listen to what you want to say. Her resistance softened, but there was a grudging acceptance in her tone. Kratos, exhausted by the whole situation, sighed deeply, muttering, Ha, seriously? What is this all of a sudden? It's so ridiculous. She's seriously lost it. With no time to waste, Kratos gave his command. Cut up the potatoes for me. We have to cut them in half to plant them. Sergei, clearly irritated by the entire interaction, muttered under her breath. This jerk just played me. You damn demon lord? Her words were filled with frustration, but she knew there was no escaping the task now. To be continued. We'll cover the next story very soon. Stay tuned. If you liked the story, let me know in the comments.